Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Monday, October 20th. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris. On this episode, we get you up to speed on the ALCS, which is going the distance. We have a Game 7 on tap on Monday night. We'll talk about how we got there. We'll preview that matchup between the Mariners and Blue Jays. It's a re-rack of Game 3 of the series. We'll see George Kirby and Shane Bieber take the ball as the starters in that game. We're also going to turn back the clock to Friday night when Shohei Ohtani played what I think is probably the greatest game we've ever seen in baseball history. Just an absurd performance from Ohtani, leading the Dodgers to an NLCS sweep over the Brewers. As you can imagine, I'm still in a bad mood about it, even though I had a nice weekend. How'd the weekend treat you?
All right. The family cold finally got me, though, so.
You're a little down.
Yeah, a little down.
A little beat. All right, well, we'll power through. We're going to find a way. I'm going to look on the bright side. Congratulations to my cousin. She got married this weekend. The power of love, right? It's good for the human spirit to see people that belong together, join together, right?
Weddings are always fun.
Weddings are a good time. Yeah.
Did you get out on the dance floor?
I did. Did for a little bit.
Nice.
I didn't have the full-on, 5 hours on the dance floor, 8 beers experience, which I kind of, to be honest, really needed that level, but it wasn't the right place for it. It was too many family members around and not a big enough crowd. It was a nice, well-attended
to
wedding,
get lost in.
Yeah, you need a really, really big crowded dance floor to get away with that, and I couldn't quite pull it off in this instance, but. A Game 7 coming up here on Monday night. I'm excited about that because I have no strong rooting interest in that series. I guess if you said, what does your heart want, Derek? I would say the Mariners going to a World Series would be nice because
for the first time
has never won one. Yeah, they've never been. My team I root for has never won one. So I'm on that side in general where we get to this point in the postseason. Show me something I haven't seen before. But the Blue Jays
are a really, I think, enticing sort of fun team to watch because of all the contact. I do want to head off anybody that wants to label the Blue Jays small ball. I looked a .530 slugging in the playoffs, the best slugging percentage in the playoffs. And so part of this has been contact with power, but it's just a really hard lineup to navigate and everyone's pesky. When you look at the bottom of the lineup, I think that to some extent, one of the Padres' problems was they made the top of the lineup with parts that you want in the bottom of the lineup. Like Luis Arias, Ernie Clement is Luis Arias to some extent.
Yeah,
but Ernie Clement plays better defense.
Ernie Clement plays really good defense, yeah.
And they put him in the bottom of the lineup, which is perfect because what happens in the bottom lineup is usually you have people on base. Somebody who can put the ball in play with a lot of people on base. That's exactly what you want. And you even saw some pitchers like Brash was pretty afraid of him. I'm jumping ahead, but I just want to laud the Blue Jays for having a really quality lineup, top to bottom. Lineup diversity we talked about in terms of guys who are good at low in the zone, guys who are good at high in the zone, star quality. Young guys coming up. I mean, just the idea that you go from Lucas to Vlad Guerrero Jr., just lefty rookie, 28-year-old rookie to the $500 million man, from the right side. That's sort of the Blue Jays in a microcosm.
Well, when your role players come through and the way the Jays role players have come through in the postseason to this point has absolutely mattered. It makes all the difference in the world around the more feared bats that you have. And Vlad Jr. hit his 6th home run of the playoffs in Game 6 off of Logan Gilbert. Let's get into some of the how we got here, though, because it's been a minute since we've had a chance to pod. Going back to Game 5, 4 pretty solid innings from Bryce Miller, and we finally saw Brian Wu for the 6th and 7th to give up 1 earned run over those 2 innings. Brash sandwiched in there, tossed a scoreless 5th, although he did allow, I think, an inherited runner from Bryce Miller to score. I think that game was pretty wild because it was an early Eugenio Suarez homer off of Kevin Gossman that gave Seattle a lead. There was a really big defensive play. Cal Raleigh got them out of a big jam. Bases loaded, 1 out. There was a ball tapped in front of the plate. I think it was an Ernie Clement ball. if Raleigh doesn't react as quickly as he does, that ball could spin foul. You could see the backspin on it on the slow-mo cam.
It was still moving, yeah.
It was still moving. Instead, he gathers it as he's stepping on the plate, throws down to first. They get out of a huge jam. I think that's just one of those defensive plays where you get the right combination of weak contact, good luck, and a heads-up play, and it mattered in a big, big way. There were some other observations for me in this game, though. I mean, Randy Arozarena appeared to pull back a homer from Ernie Clement. It was at least extra bases off the top of the wall. It's kind of hard to tell for sure, even on the slow-mo, if that was going to get over or if it was going to hit the top of the wall. But I think the way you saw this game turn was just, it was the result of some very curious bullpen management from John Schneider, going with Little in the eighth with both Jeff Hoffman and Sir Anthony Dominguez available. And Cal Raleigh pops the game-tying homer. Little walks Jorge Polanco and Josh Naylor. Sir Anthony Dominguez comes in to try to clean up the mess, hits Randy Arozarena to load the bases, and Suarez hits an opposite field grand slam to give Seattle a huge win at home and just make that crowd at T-Mobile go absolutely crazy in the process. But that sequence from Schneider would be something you're pretty upset about as a Blue Jays fan, even though you came back to win Game 6 and extend the series to a 7th game. What do you think the real reason was for going with Little in that spot with your two best, most prominently used leverage guys both available?
Yeah, it's something we've talked about a lot here. John Schneider, after the game, told Keegan Matheson that he wanted to make sure that part of the lineup sees different guys. It's exactly what we've been talking about in terms of not giving Cal Raleigh too many looks at Jeff Hoffman, or not giving him too many looks at Sir Anthony Dominguez. One thing that, in hindsight, might pop off the page for you, though, is that Cal Raleigh, over his career, is almost equally good from both sides of the plate. However, a 272 ISO versus lefties, 253 against righties. So he has a little bit more power, a little bit more patience against righties, and a little more power against lefties. And that is absolutely what you didn't want out of him at that moment. You'd rather have taken a Cal Raleigh walk than a homer. As to Little's quality, I think he's a really good pitcher. Stuff plus is there, the K- BB's there, even the fastball velo 95 plus for a lefty. It's all great. However, his best fastball is a sinker. And so there are going to be platoon issues. So you take your lefty, whose best fastball is a sinker, and you turn around a switch hitter to his more powerful side. I think that's where some of the second guessing has some merit.
Yeah. It's you're going to have to make some tough decisions, as we say throughout the entire postseason. That just seemed like a spot where, are you going Hoffman in front of Dominguez? They've been a little more flexible with those two guys than they were during the regular season. Given the matchups, if you were going to have one of the other relievers start the inning, who do you like better against Raleigh, regardless of how much he's actually seen them up to this point?
I mean, there was a base open, wasn't there? I think I would rather just take Dominguez and be like, worst case scenario, he walks him.
Yeah, that was to start the inning.
Yeah. I think I would just do Dominguez.
Yeah. So
that we know that we don't know. We don't know. We don't know for sure that multiple looks. I think the research points us in that direction. We don't know. And this is where feel comes in. Unless your R&D department, maybe they've done this, has really sort of modeled out everything. So they can say, oh, Sir Anthony Dominguez seeing a batter for the second time or third time is worse than Brendan Little seeing them for the first time. Even if Little sees the platoon, right? They have to model a lot of stuff to say that. And the problem with that is that if you just model and you say, okay, this is how a player decays if he sees a batter 3 times, right? There's a fair amount of noise in this. This is what we figured out. We looked at Mike Petriello's work and we're like, woo, it's not every year that you see a big difference in the third time a reliever sees somebody, right? And we know that third time through the order penalty is in the same game. So you're like, that's the same day. You're looking at the same pitches the same day. Does that really carry over to 2 or 3 days later the same way? So there's noise in that model. And then you take that model and you put it together with the other model that's just telling you how good a player is. And there's some noise in that too, when it comes to how good they are in platoons and stuff like that. So when you take these models, you put them together, you risk smushing more error together, I think. And so to some extent, it's feel, where the manager has to be like, okay, we don't know exactly how much worse it is to see Brendan Little a second time than Sir Anthony Dominguez a fourth time or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of feel it. There's definitely feel in there. And I think Schneider's done a decent job with feel. This one decision I didn't like.
Yeah, and I feel like there's probably, for any playoff team, even just in one series, you can find a decision that was a close decision that you would have done differently, even if it had actually worked out. That's pretty common, I think, as far as your tough calls go. The other takeaway from Game 5, though, was that while Brian Wu was in the game, he went inside, clipped George Springer in the knee, and Springer left the game, had x-rays that were negative. He played in Game 6. Springer looks compromised swinging the bat. You could see him grimacing when he swings, right? You could see.
It looked bad. I mean, they had a sound.
Oh,
he was registered as a batted ball by StatCast.
Ooh, okay, yeah. It sounded bad on the broadcast for sure. And even I think Smoltz and Joe Davis were like, oh, that sounded awful. And they were right. It sounded awful when it happened. So seeing how uncomfortable he is coming through Game 6, knowing he's going to be in the starting lineup for Game 7, unless it got a lot worse from playing on it, right? If he's swollen up and can't do anything, then sure, they got to make some kind of adjustment. But my assumption is George Springer starts that game, leads off again for the Blue Jays. The situation in which he'd be removed from that game would be a specific situation where he is on base, the game is close, and they need a first to third or a second to home, or they just need better legs, safer, healthier legs on the base pass late.
And I think
for that one,
I think that situation only happens in the 8th or 9th.
Yeah, very,
if he
very
could come
late
back up
game.
again, I don't think you want to take him out. I mean, we had the whole Riley Green take him out for a pinch hitter, right? And then
that was my AJ Hinch move that I really didn't like. And yeah,
and his spot came back up. Part of it was because his spot came back up, right?
Yep.
I think John Schneider is not going to take out Springer if there's a chance his spot comes back up. So I think it's really like the 9th inning.
I guess they can make that informed decision too, based on like what the quality of his BP looks like and stuff too, right? Like there's a little more information they can work with than we have going into the game. Like we're not going to be there to see that. If he's still driving the ball well enough in, I would assume, a pretty limited BP. Also, you don't want to take a lot of hacks on a bad leg. Then you leave him in because you think he can still do damage.
I do want to highlight something that I think will become a theme here because we're going to talk about this with Logan Gilbert a little bit. But if you look, here at Bryce Miller's, pitch chart, I think you can see really good north-south command. He was really great. I mean, this looks really beautiful in terms of putting the four seam in competitive places across the top of the zone and putting the splitter just right along the black at the bottom. You see some sinkers down there, so he's not all hard up and soft down. So like that stuff's good. What you do see are some sweepers and sinkers and splitters that go to get away from him side to side. So command is relative. You can have command in certain ways and not have in others. I think that Miller's natural command is best up down. And that's why he struggled a little bit with the sweeper, the slider, the slurve, the different sort of east-west pitches he's tried. I think partially he's just not that kind of a pitcher. He's an up-down guy. We'll take a look at Woo's chart here for a second. And with Woo, I think you see just a missing command left to right. So his four-seam command is pretty good. It's right across the top of the zone. But the sinkers you see are in off the plate. That's one of them is the one that hit George Springer. So he had a long layoff. Bryce Miller had a long layoff and talked about coming back off of that and his fastball command. So maybe that's what they were nervous about with Wu, because they were obviously nervous about something. A, maybe him being healthy, or B, it's been such a long layoff. He hasn't had like a rehab stint or anything, and he's such a fastball heavy guy that command is such a big deal. We're going to put him out there, and we don't know what his command is going to look like. It looked good enough to win, but I don't think that was vintage Wu. So I have one more note about command when it comes to Logan Gilbert in the next game, but I think that this is a strength of the Mariners that does not factor particularly well against the Blue Jays offense, because if you have great command, a lot of times you're putting it in the zone, and the Blue Jays offense is so contact heavy that they're going to hit those pitches, So I wonder if a better matchup against the Blue Jays bats would be like a really high stuff, lower command staff. I'm going to say the Dodgers just because that's what they care about. And that it seems obvious. Oh, yes, it would be great to have the Dodgers staff right now for the Mariners. That's not what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are other teams, there are other players that are kind of more high stuff, lower command. And I wonder, the Yankees sometimes have pitchers like that. Like, would a Luis Gil maybe dominate the Blue Jays potentially because he'd be wild, but be high stuff, Maybe.
Expanding that zone a little bit more on those hitters that can do a lot around the shadow zone, but maybe they're chasing a little more than they'd like to because that stuff's good enough, looks like it's going to be close enough, and it's not. So, yeah.
Right. Whereas these guys, the Mariners are a walk avoidant team. They're a high command team. And unfortunately, that's what they're going with tonight. I mean, George Kirby, find your inner Luis Gil, like, place it further out. But again, jumping ahead, we are now at game 6.
Yes, we are moving through the weekend. We are in order for this series. Logan Gilbert, I don't think he's looked sharp in either one of his appearances in this series relative to his own high standards, and I don't think it's necessarily some sort of hangover effect from working in relief in game 5 of the ALDS, but I do think we're clearly in the part of the baseball calendar where if you were healthy and pitching all season long, you might begin to lose something just in terms of the crispness of your pitches or even your ability to locate as well as you do for most of the season.
Yeah, so in the previous appearance from Logan Gilbert, his slider was not there. He gutted through it because the team needed him to, but he was throwing some backup sliders. I mean, he was throwing sliders that weren't breaking correctly, and the velo wasn't quite there on the slider. In this game, again, the velo was down on the slider. The break was a little bit weird. It was a little bit more sideways than kind of the perfect bullet. He's looking for the 0-0, and he didn't get it. But then on top of that, the splitter, where he's told me he's looking for the splitter to be 84, 85, the splitter was 81, and it had 4 inches less drop. So now you look at this pitch chart, and that's the point I'm trying to make, is that command is relative. Here, the command is relative to his stuff. And so his splitter wasn't moving the way it's normally supposed to, and that's why you see hanging splitters in this chart. You see a bunch of splitters in the middle of the zone, which is not exactly what he wanted. And you see even a splitter at the top of the zone. So, he had lost, I think, some command of his slider and splitter due to their different movements, due to, I would say, fatigue. There's got to be some fatigue effects here. Again, if it wasn't the Blue Jays lineup, he might have pitched well enough to advance them, but it's a great Blue Jays lineup, and you can't throw your B or C plus slider to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. too often.
That will not work. Trey Yesavage, I thought, had better command overall this time out than he did in game 2, 7 Ks. He still walked 3 guys, went 5 2/3, gave just 2 earned. And I just think the amount of pressure there is on a guy who's only made, 7 big league starts, I think now is the total, counting the postseason, is just unreal. Like, to see guys showing up with that little experience and playing at that level in these spots, navigating a really tough Seattle lineup, that was huge. And I think there's going to be a carryover effect for Game 7 in that because Yesavage was so good, they only had to use 2 relievers, right? It was Louis Varland for 1 1/3, 22 pitches, Jeff Hoffman for 2, 35 pitches, 2 innings. So if they go to Hoffman in Game 7, I'm sort of leery that he's going to see more than an innings worth of work, just because that'd be a pretty aggressive back-to-back to give him 25 or 30 pitches again. I think that would leave him pretty vulnerable to getting hit. But I mean, that was there's a couple stories. Yesavage was good. The Mariners' defense was sloppy. That was a huge part of the story as well. And double plays galore. Like the Blue Jays' defense was great all year, and Yesavage got ground balls when he needed them to get in trouble.
Really timed double plays.
Yes,
just like Houdini.
Right. He was very good, and that outing still was a little wobbly at times. There were plenty of opportunities for the Mariners to get right back in that game with one swing, but he got the pitches he needed, hit right at defenders at the exact right time.
Yesavage next year in fantasy drafts and, just generally, coming off this great run is going to be really fascinating. I have a little bit of an inkling that perhaps he will be overvalued in drafts next year due to something like the NCAA tourney effect, where we've seen these great outings in the playoffs, and so we think he's proven now, and so he needs to be taken among the proven guys. But there's a couple of things that I think are interesting. The slider is just so weird that maybe it works the first time, but maybe it doesn't work later. I wonder if batters could be like, I'm not going to call it a slider in my head. I'm just going to call it, a bad sinker, or like a one-seam sinker. And if I think of it that way, because, Yesavage threw like 12 sliders that were a belt high or above, that you in yesteryear might have called hanging sliders. I think that's maybe one of the most modern pitches in baseball, actually, the high slider. It's now on purpose, and it's done with effect, and now you're asking pitchers to be able to command that pitch, to throw a high slider. That's something they didn't do before. But if batters refocus and call that, a one-seam sinker in their head, then perhaps they can hit that pitch a little bit better, going forward. His command was all right, but there were a lot of sort of chase waste pitches. He does, waste pitches. Despite having a lot of ride, he has a huge over-the-top slot. In other words, like, should he and Jonah Tong be so far apart in drafts as they will be next year?
Oh, what do you think the gap actually is going to be? Like 50 plus picks? You think it's more like a 3 to 4 round gap between them? Like that's what the market's going to do, but you think they should be same tier, same kind of round?
I mean, there's something so similar about the stuff to me. High fastball, really crazy high over the top slot, iffy breaking ball, great splitter.
Possibility of trouble with some walks. Yeah. That's built in, I think, with both of them. Workloads for this year, I think, are pretty comparable. Tong was 113 2/3 in the minors, 18 2/3 once he got up to the Mets. So
and they
it's about
both had
132.
Blew through the minors. I think Tong had the best strikeout rate in the minors, and Yesavage had the 6th best strikeout total in fewer innings than anybody ahead of him. So, like, both these guys are very exciting. That's where I want to circle it that way. They're very exciting. I think they should be closer than they should be, and they both have flaws that I'm not exactly sure how they're going to play out. But great pitch, great game from him against Gilbert. Great for the Blue Jays to get back in this. I love Game 7s. I mean, just, what's so exciting about this Game 7 is there's an opportunity for us to maybe have a memory on the level of Joe Carter, on the level of, and then Joe Carter was Game 6, if I remember correctly. So, imagine a walk-off homer today. It would immediately it would join the annals of all like baseball history, which we'll get to more later. I mean, just that's exciting. And Kirby and Bieber, like both of them could give out standout performances. These are guys that I think or Cy worthy at different times of their careers. And maybe that's in front of him for Kirby and behind him for Bieber, but they're both really good pitchers, really good command, really good stuff. And this could be like a 3-2 game that's decided in the 8th or 9th. And I think it could be a classic.
Yeah, it's amazing because, last time we saw this earlier in the series in Game 3, it turned into a 13-4 Blue Jays rout.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. You re-rack things in multiple universes, and you never know.
Well, you got the venue change for one, so you're in Toronto, which the result should be the
more
opposite.
Offense. Yeah,
right. It should increase offense. That should be harder for George Kirby. The thing that I think
but
about,
this is also a winner-take-all game, so like you're not even gonna let it to get to 13.
Well,
you're gonna pitch everybody you got.
Everything's gonna be a little bit different, and just sort of rounding up the other side. Kind of mentioned before, Hoffman 35 pitches, Varland 22 pitches in Game 6. On the Mariners side, Bizardo 15 pitches through 2 innings. He should be available in bridge if needed. Matt Brash 21 pitches in 1 inning. I think he's fully available. Even Carlos Vargas, that game has to go extras for Carlos Vargas to pitch in it. I think that's the nice way to say it.
There are other starters.
Like which starters would they throw? I mean,
Castillo maybe.
Castillo would be available. I would say out of the pen a little bit. Yeah, definitely.
Wu didn't pitch that many.
You could probably throw Wu back out there for an inning.
But it's a question of like his health, right?
Right.
I doubt that he's going to, but maybe,
Because you're looking at like throw day schedules for a lot of these guys. And then on the Jays side, like could we see Scherzer out of the pen if we need it? Like there's just lots of possible wrinkles given the circumstances. And the thing you have to remember too is that Game 7 of this series is Monday. Game 1 of the World Series is Friday. So you got some time to recover and get everything back on track.
You can throw everybody, yeah.
Yeah, so other than, like, Gausman's not going to pitch in this game anyway. Gausman would be your Game 1 starter on Friday if the Blue Jays win. So you're covered there. And Logan Gilbert would be the Game 1 starter for the Mariners, right? So you have enough time
basically
to do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
Everybody else is on the card. And I think the what could be different sort of question, the Jays are slight favorites. -130 at BetMGM, 7.5 over under. So that kind of sets the level appropriately for what the offensive environment should be like.
4-3 instead of 3-2, right?
Yeah, 4-3, 5-4. Something much, much closer is very likely. I couldn't believe this. The Fox broadcast threw this stat up at the end of the game last night. The home team is 30-29 in Game 7s all time and have lost 7 of the last 8. Where's home field advantage in Game 7, right? That's weird.
That is weird.
So I have no explanation for why that is, but what's different this time around? Venue change, bullpens pretty much all available. That's different. Springer's knee clearly bothering him. That's pretty different from the Jays' offensive perspective. And then there's the way Kirby pitched that game, right? He referred to it as too cute. And I wonder how much they'll change up pitch sequencing, how much less likely they are to try and throw the same pitch on consecutive pitches in and around the same spot. Because that to me was one of the things about Kirby that didn't make a lot of sense in the approach in Game 3. So if they went further away from that, that would not surprise me at all. And then I think because the Jays opened up that lead, Bieber settled down after a wobbly first inning. He was also able to open up and expand where he was locating a little bit more. He had more room to work because the pressure was on Seattle in that case. They had to chase a little bit more, and Bieber took full advantage of that. If this game's tighter, Bieber's going to have to live closer to the zone than he did in Game 3. So I anticipate that that's likely different as well.
And, there's the different day, different arm, which sounds a little bit like nonsense, but I think it's totally true. One thing that I noticed from Kirby's last outing is that he didn't throw any splitters at all. Not a single one. So could he, throw him in the bullpen and be like, okay, that feels better today. I've got the splitter. And could he, replace some of the sinkers that were hit pretty hard? He had a sinker hit 112.5 miles an hour, and the average on a sinker was 97. Could he replace some of those sinkers with splitters? That might be a good wrinkle to throw out there. And then generally, why was he 40% sinker, 40% slider in the last game to a team that has been good against sinkers? So he's there. There's got to be more in there. There's got to be another way to attack this using this, the same yearly arsenal, just sort of highlighting different pitches. So I'm circling the splitter. I want to see the splitter.
Yeah, that makes sense as one of the wrinkles that Kirby could throw out there. I just would be stunned if it's the same game plan as Game 3. That seems like it's a highly unlikely decision that the Mariners would make collectively.
Bieber can go the other way, actually. I don't know if this is a function of the score, but Bieber was a true 5-pitch pitcher against them last time. He threw 5 pitches at least 16% of the time. And, could he come back and now be, 40% sliders, 40% forcing fastballs and change it up on them that way and try to just dominate using his best 2 pitches?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how it plays out on Monday night, though. Game 7s are great if you don't have a rooting interest in them or if your team wins them, I'm sure. I'm just guessing what that's like. I've never actually been on the winning side of a Game 7 as a baseball fan. So, hooray! Let's talk about the greatest game we've ever seen played.
That's a good transition.
Look, I'm glad the rest of you got to enjoy the spectacle that was Shohei Ohtani playing the best game that we've ever seen in baseball history. I think Jason Stark had a great piece outlining why it's kind of a runaway laugher for that distinction, because Jason goes through several historically great performances. Reggie Jackson's 3-homer game that clinched the 1978 World Series for the Yankees. David Freese' Game 6 of the World Series in 2011.
By the way, just really quickly, it's been annoying listening to the same ads over and over again on the MLB Audio and MLB TV apps this year. But there's one ad for MLB in the MLB Audio that is the Reggie Jackson third homer of that. And the call is so classic because I don't even know who's on the call, but he starts out by saying, like, if there was a prize, if there was money associated with the prize for Dynamite, then part of that prize should go to Reggie Jackson, who has 2 homers tonight. And then he's like, and he launches a 30.
It's right on the cue.
Yeah. So,
but
anyway,
even even like the big home runs and the Freddie Freeman's work last year in the postseason, or Kirk Gibson in '88, Joe Carter in '93, or Bill Mazeroski in 1960, which is just something that I've seen like on highlights. Wasn't around to see that one. Thankfully, I wasn't around in 1960. But all of those performances are great performances, as Jason points out. None of those guys pitched in those games. Those were all just hitting performances. So for Ohtani to come in and hit 3 homers and strike out 10 over 6 innings of 2-hit ball,
especially in modern baseball, because when you're talking about Bob Gibson's 17 strikeout game in 1968, like the modern pitcher may not be allowed to pitch the whole 9 innings or whatever that Gibson's allowed to, right? And the no hitter in the postseason that Roy Halladay threw is increasingly unlikely in today's games, where they're not going to allow the pitcher to get the 3rd time through the order and so on. So, even Don Larson's perfect game in 1956, like some of those things are in the rearview mirror. Like, I don't know what the equivalent of 6 innings with 10 strikeouts is in 1956, but it might be pretty close to, a 17 strikeout full 9 inning shutout. It's pretty, it's not quite there, but and another thing that I think is interesting about this list is like, okay, you take the hitter list and maybe you say, okay, he clinched the CS and not like a World Series. And so it's not up there with the Reggie Jackson. So let's say he had like one of the 10 best games. He was like maybe 8th, on the list of hitter games, right? And then you look at the pitcher ones and he's like, well, it's not a Roy Halladay perfect game. It's not the 17th. So let's give him the eighth best pitching game. I've had people say, if he's a top 20 hitter all time and a top 50 pitcher all time when he finishes, do we just hand him best player of all time? Isn't he sort of okay at both things? Like among the pantheon of the greats, is he just like pretty good at both things? And I'm like, dude, this is why we created WAR. Like, this is why, like, I think, and this is maybe unsubstantiated, people may disagree with me, but I think Willie Mays is the best player ever. And the reason I think that is because when he played, in terms of the types of players he played, post-integration ball, right? But also because he was a crazy good center fielder defensively and one of the best bats of all time. But was he the best bat of all time? No. Was he the best center fielder of all time? No. But I can put these things together and say, well, he's probably like a top 3 center fielder and he's probably like a top 5 bat. So I'm going to give him top player of all time. So I think we can do that with Shohei Ohtani and be like, okay, let's say he's a top 25 bat of all time and he's a top 50 or top 100 pitcher of all time. Yeah, probably best player of all time. Because if you put those two things together, that's what you get.
Yeah, it seemed like it was the fitting end to the NLCS, where the starting pitching performances in game 1 and game 2 especially were just incredible. And even game 3, like Tyler Glasnow's start in game 3 was just kind of like your standard good Tyler Glasnow start, which is great. Like Tyler Glasnow, when he's healthy, he's probably a top 10 or top 15 starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. He had his typical Glasnow outing, and that was like, well, they should have won that one. That was their best chance. Like, cool. I mean, like, you just gotta be in awe of how good they are right now. As a
to be clear, I think
rotation.
If Ohtani keeps this up, like my Willie Mays will be second best.
Well, and that's the thing is like we're seeing things we've never seen before, and then you say, well, how long do you need to see it at a level at near, around, above what he's currently doing? I mean, pitching wise, healthier full seasons as a pitcher are something we will likely and hopefully see from Ohtani for the next several years. The bat has hit this level that I think even when he broke through and had his first great big league season, like before he even became a Dodger, did we believe that the peak was going to be what it has been so far at the plate for him? I mean, that I didn't think that was going to happen. Like I thought when Shohei hit 46 homers and stole 26 bases in 2021, right? 372 OBP, 592 slug. Okay, that's great. That's like one of the best hitting seasons I've seen in modern times. Like what? And he can pitch too. That's awesome. Like if he's not better than that, he's still amazing. And now we've seen multiple seasons over 50 homers. We saw 59 bags a year ago. Like that part of his game probably doesn't come back because of the injury risk, but the Ks have come down over time. We thought that was always going to be part of the story. That hasn't been the case. So we're talking about a guy he's 31 right now. How does a two-way player who's this good at both things age? That's a complete unknown, right?
We don't have that. I could tell you right now, he's already crossed the threshold, basically, of where we discuss Hall of Famers. He's got past 50 wins above replacement, if you add up both sides. And I think it's fair to say, another complaint about Ohtani has been, well, he's just a DH, but he's a DH by necessity, by what he wants to do. Like it would really tax his body. I think he could have played center field early in his career, and he could definitely play right field right now, just in terms of the tools that he has, the athleticism that he has. But it would be a lot to ask of him to play in the field and also pitch and do, be as excellent as he is. So, we also have some evidence that the DH penalty in wins above replacement is too high. So it could be fair to call him already a 55, 60 win player. And he has probably at least 6-7 more years in him. I do think it's going to be fair to say, what if he ends up as a pitcher with, he has 14 wins above replacement right now. What if he only gets to 20, 25 wins above replacement? Maybe he ends up relieving at the end. That's not even maybe a top 100 pitcher. But it is value that he gave his team. And was a standout pitcher. So I don't think it's fair to take that away from it.
Yeah. I think we're at the point, though, now where folks like us, and even the people that watch him every day especially, they're just running out of words to describe what they're seeing. And I guess the other way to think about this is, okay, so if this was the best game we've ever seen played, what's the best possible game that Shohei Ohtani could have? I mean, come on, like, let's nitpick this. He only went 6, like a complete game shutout, more Ks, a 4th homer. I'm not going to say that's impossible.
Some stolen bases. Maybe he just gets on base and gets. Yeah, but he can't steal bases. You're hitting homers.
Well, sure. Yeah. See? Yeah. Why don't you steal some bases hitting all those homers, dude?
How about a cycle? How about a cycle with a stolen base or two?
I mean, yeah, if you just want it to be like the bingo card coverall sort of thing.
Yeah. But I mean, he can hit a cycle. He can hit a triple. He has legs, man.
Sure. Of course. But I just think the question of what is the best possible game a player could have is now out there, and now you see a guy that could do it. And I'm saying this like fully acknowledging that what he did is ridiculous.
Here's the one thing: could it be 1 homer in a 1-0 game? Like, imagine the Jack Morris, John Smoltz duel, but it's Ohtani and he hits a walk-off homer.
I mean, you'd probably you could say that's better.
Could that be better? I mean, it's and that was game 7 of the World Series too. So that's pretty hypothetical. And
I mean, the guy homered 3 times in a game in which he pitched 6 scoreless innings, and the opposing team only scored 1 run, and that happened after he left.
John Blas has a thing about the total bases by Ohtani versus the total bases by the Brewers in that game.
Shut up, John. No, I like John. John's a good follow. I'm just mad. Like this, it happened to the Phillies. It happened to the Brewers. It very well could happen to whoever wins Game 7 tonight. This team is playing exceptionally well and is very healthy at the exact right time of year. Right? It's just there's not much you can do other than watch and enjoy it and say this is as good as we've seen from both Ohtani and maybe from this entire pitching staff in terms of like a modern playoff performance. And they're getting back to 90s Braves stuff. The graphics on the screen. When you see 90s Braves comps show up, you're seeing something pretty special from a group of starting pitchers. So even beyond Ohtani, I just think you have to recognize how good Snell and Yamamoto have been, and even Tyler Glasnow clunking through 5 innings, but actually doing it really well too.
Yeah, I mean, just a great rotation. And to put that question to Smoltz, I love like, Smoltz, who do you take?
I'd take me.
Your guys? Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'd take our rotation.
I told Smoltz once when we were doing a sleeper in the bus that I told that I thought growing up that he was the big post game pitcher of the group because he had power stuff and all this, and that was better suited to the postseason. He said, "I agree."
Nah, he didn't go the humble route and say Greg could locate it anywhere he wanted to, anytime. No, he just said, "Yeah, you're right."
Ohtani's appearance was he had the 3rd best stuff for himself of his career in that game. He had I quoted the splits. He had like a 700 OPS at the plate as a pitcher. So that was his personal best game as a hitter while pitching as well too.
Yeah, he didn't like
I'm saying
that
obvious
stat.
things, but it goes against some of the trends that had been happening in his career.
Someone got in his ear and told him about that, and he's like, well, that's not going to hold up.
They've been talking crap about you.
Yeah, they've been saying you're not that good of a hitter when you pitch.
Yeah.
And he's like, fine, I'm going to hit a ball that no one can find. Just absurd. I do think the sequencing of using Quintana as a starter versus maybe sneaking him into the game against the bottom part of the lineup after a Chad Patrick start was something the Brewers could have considered. And I think whenever we do the Brewers postmortem, I don't know if you want to do it now. We could save it for some other day. I don't know if it's going to make me sad or happy. I don't know what's going to make me feel, actually. So I'm a little afraid. I just think Quintana, I said this before the matchup, because of Ashby being used so frequently as the opener. Quintana's stuff is just so old at this point that the lefty aspect of throwing him at Shohei doesn't matter. He threw him a 79-mile-an-hour slurve down and in. And the pitch that he crushed even further off Chad Patrick was a cutter down and in. And the fastball he hit off of Trevor McGill was also down and in. It wasn't as
they're
down
trying
or as
to get
in.
them up and in, and they're missing.
It's missing badly. Don't miss down there. He
No.
crushes pitches down there.
Yeah, that's not.
That's where
a
he
happy
wants
zone.
the ball. Oh,
Yeah.
man. So it's not a how I'd pitch this guy. It's a don't miss there. And there's other places you can't miss, but definitely don't miss there against Shohei.
Yeah, I mean, the options weren't there. There just wasn't a really better way to do this, I think. You were talking about maybe starting Patrick with the higher velo and then, using Quintana as a change of pace.
Yeah, and you would have planned on, in that scenario, like Patrick gave them 4, right? Through 47 pitches. So if you get 12 outs, a couple base runners, you're thinking 15 hitters, roughly, is what if that's the limit, because he's been working in relief, you got your number. That means you're getting down through Teoscar in the lineup. And then you bring in Quintana to face Muncy.
The lefties at the top.
Like Muncy, you get him against Muncy, Kike, and Pajes the first time, potentially. Right? That's fine. Like, you'd rather throw him against the 7 through 9 hitters, see how it's going, and then make a decision if you have to, like, he's
go back to Ashby.
Go back to Ashby or Koenig.
Again.
Throw Koenig instead of Ashby.
That's right.
Because then you got Koenig
yeah.
to go against Ohtani, Betts, Dave Smith hitting third against lefties.
And then maybe it's Uribe down 2.
Right. Like and I'm not sitting here going, everything would have been different if they tried that.
They also would have been super tired and had a game the next day. Like, they would have used up so much of their pitching that the next day would have been like, well, I hope Quinn Priester can go 6.
Yeah, it would have been a grind to get back into the series. It just would have been, right? And we know.
The real answer for me is just slightly more investment. I know you can look at this both ways and be like, oh, the Dodgers broke baseball by having all this money and using it. But you could also look at it the other way and say, well, could the Brewers have spent $10 million more dollars? Could they, I know Justin Verlander didn't have the best season, but Justin Verlander on this team would have probably been a better choice than Jose Quintana in that game. Max Scherzer, just had one of the games of his life. These two guys were available for an affordable price for the Brewers. And that's what I would wish upon them, is do all the things that you're doing and then spend an extra $10 million on one more piece.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for a $200 million payroll.
Do you share the collective optimism for optimism might be a little strong, but I think most people who know and cover the team feel as though they're not going to just disintegrate and vanish from contention in 2026. The core is coming back. They have some options and some decisions they have to make. I think the big one is either a $10 million buyout for Woodruff or a $20 million option. And I think he can get out of that too. I think there's like a mutual component there. So like that's a little bit of an unknown, but they could also, if there's a decline in there, they could try to bring him back. Quintana probably isn't back, but up and down the lineup, I mean, Chourio, long-term contract, Yelich, long-term contract. Still got Contreras, still got Trey.
I mean, the lineup,
all of them, they're all back.
The lineup's in good shape. The pitching staff is not. Under contract starters for next year, and I'm guessing that Woodruff is out, and they're already talking about shopping Freddie Peralta. Now, can you shop?
Yeah, but
can you
yes.
shop Freddie Peralta to a team where you get a couple starters back? I'm thinking of, I don't think the Padres can do it anymore, but like, the Padres, when they have traded for guys, they've taken a couple of starting pitchers back for one, like when they traded Soto, they took Vasquez and Thorpe and stuff. Like, could you do something where you trade Freddie Peralta for a current major league starting pitcher and then also a prospect you think is close enough that might actually be on the roster next year? That would be a very Brewers trade, but you'd still have to replace Peralta, and the person coming back, would they be as good as Peralta? And who would be your number one? So in terms of, who's under contract next year, you've got Peralta, I guess the rotation would be Tobias Myers, DL Hall.
Nah, Chad Patrick's in there ahead. Like they're
Logan
in the
Henderson,
mix.
Chad
Logan,
Patrick. Okay, so you got
a healthy
Mizorowski.
Henderson, Patrick, Miz. Miz is probably your 2 right now.
Yeah, so Hall's probably done there. So it's maybe Myers as your 5 right now.
Maybe, but they've actually got pretty decent pitching depth.
There's Gasser. You could put Gasser and Myers.
Gasser's in the mix. Priester's still under control for a long time.
But again, I think that would be that team right there would be a perfect team to spend $10 million on a bounce back guy, you know? And I know they don't always work out, but like something as silly, I don't know what Lucas Giolito's elbow is like right now, but if Lucas Giolito feels like he needs a $10 or $12 million deal to prove his health again, then I would give it to him. You know what I mean? Even the guy that they just had, Jordan Montgomery, like, what does he want next year? You could probably get him for 1 and 7, while he reestablished himself. And I think that'd be a decent addition to this lineup. I don't know that he helps you in this scenario. We're up against the Dodgers. Do you really want Jordan Montgomery? But I think Jordan Montgomery probably would have been a better person to pitch than José Quintana in the last game.
Yeah, a healthy Jordan Montgomery versus this late career version of José Quintana, there's a pretty big difference. And we saw what Montgomery did in the postseason a few years ago.
That's right.
Right. You're talking more about a guy that's got like a 22% K rate going out there with good control. Like that, like that's a little more plausible. Are you still an underdog? Yeah, you are. But you can at least tell yourself a story of living to tell the tale, of getting through 5, maybe giving up 2, turning it over to the pen. I mean, the pitching overall, given what they had, was not a disaster in the series by any stretch of the imagination. They did well, I think, on the pitching front. And they continue to find and develop guys. But I do think Patrick as a starter again next year makes more sense to me, even though the reliever role suited him really well in the postseason. I think you have enough there where you want to see what he can do with 150, 160 innings.
Late arrival of the Slurve. You know, that I was always waiting for him to have a good secondary that, he didn't really have that early on. But Slurve, cutter, 2 fastballs, I think that can work.
I do think the Peralta stuff, $8 million for the final year, and then you could also give him a qualifying offer after next year and get draft pick compensation. I think
Willie Adames played all the way through, right? They didn't trade everybody.
Right. I do think for a team that wants to continue contending, they're always in a position to listen on nearly everybody. That's what the Rays do. That's what the Guardians do, right? That's what all of the teams that operate with a small payroll often move guys before they hit free agency, or at least rarely retain guys once they hit free agency and have that 9-figure deal. It's either an extension before that, or it's just year to year to year. That's just the way they go. You're going to listen because the pitching market's a little thin. We've already talked about that. There are not a lot of great starting pitchers out there. So if you can get the return you want for Freddie, then sure. Then you go ahead and you move on. And it's hard. It is hard to root for a team like that because Freddie was their ace this year. He pitched really well, right? A 2.70 ERA over 176 2/3 in the regular season, 3 consecutive years with 200 Ks. I mean, he's become a really good pitcher.
What does it take? Like, would it take more or less than Emmett Sheehan and River Ryan? Less.
I think probably that actually sounds like a return that the Brewers would love. That almost sounds like maybe it's too much. Think about the Glasnow trade, right? Glasnow to the Dodgers.
That's close.
With 1 year
Ryan
left,
Pepio,
right?
And what was the other pieces though?
That was Johnny LaDuca for the win.
Margot was in it too.
Judges.
I guess the point was Pepio basically.
Pepio was the key to that deal.
Part of it too, yeah.
Yeah, it was DeLuca and Pepio.
So it'd be Sheehan. It would be Sheehan and another piece, and it would be a lesser piece. It would be DeLuca-esque piece. It would be, I don't know who that is off the top of my head, but it would be a pop-up type prospect that they in LA didn't think would. Rushing.
No, that's gonna be that'd be in the too much category.
It is
Do
too
they
much,
have
yeah.
do they have a 26 to 28-year-old good defender that they don't have
Alex
room to
Freeland.
play? Freeland would probably be. I mean, the Brewers would be happy to get Freeland back in that deal, but
Do they
the
trade
rage.
Freeland away?
But the rage if it was the Dodgers getting yet another starter, like what do the Dodgers need Freddie Peralta for? Like
Also,
Glasnow, Snell,
gotta hurt a
Yamamoto,
little bit in
Ohtani,
Milwaukee to
all
be
back.
like,
It would hurt a
sure,
lot.
give us Sheehan and Alex Freeland. Thank you.
It's Sheehan and Justin Dean, who we saw play. We see a lot as a defensive replacement, and the Brewers would play Justin Dean in like the Blake Perkins role, but they don't need to do that. They got Perkins back if they want him. So I don't know. I don't know what the exact return would be, but I do think that final year of Glasnow gives you a pretty good sense of what that trade might look like.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Dodgers they care as much about the $8 million part. You know what I mean? Maybe it seems more like a Padres deal, but then the Padres, what do they have to send?
Brewers don't need
anyway.
a catching project, so no, I don't really know if they line up particularly well. But I do think the where does Freddie Peralta go question that's going to swirl for most of the winter, and maybe we'll get some sort of indication along the way that they listened to offers and didn't like what they got, or we'll get that news release that they traded him, and fans will just say, "Okay, here we go again."
I also noticed something about the roster resource pages. I'd been adding in arbitration figures, but I don't know when this happened. Maybe they're using the MLB trade rumors numbers, but now arbitration is in there. So but the options are not. So if you look at the Brewers payroll, it says $81 million for luxury tax purposes, and it was $144 last year or this season that's just ended. So that looks like they could have as much as 50, 60 million to spend. Now that does not include anything for Woodruff, right? And I don't think it includes, does not include players no longer. I don't think options are in here. So once you pay Danny Jansen and Freddie Peralta and William Contreras, that goes up 20 million. So I think that they have $40 million for the rotation. That's what I would spend it on.
But
I think
then
Andrew Vaughn is your Rhys Hoskins replacement.
Yeah, I think that's the easy toggle they're going to make there. They're going to keep Vaughn for another year. I think. Now, I don't remember what happened on this for sure, but I noticed when they acquired Vaughn, I swear we looked this up. It looked like he was tracking for 26 to be his last year before free agency. And now I'm seeing 26 and 27, but I know he spent some time at AAA this year. So did the White Sox, by sending him down, and the Brewers, by keeping him at AAA for a couple of weeks, actually get themselves an extra year of Andrew Vaughn?
Arbitration? Yeah.
It sure looks like it, because he debuted in 21, and he's played in the big leagues a lot. So that's kind of an odd little sidebar to the Vaughn spent time at AAA this year. Yeah, well, it gives him one more year to make the choice and see how real, what he did in the second half was, I guess. If
they could move on from Jake Bauers and use the $40 million where it's like Woodruff for 20, on like maybe 2 and 40 or something, a short-term deal. And let Bauers walk, maybe like DFA Bauers, and maybe get a $10 million veteran pitcher, like I'm saying, and then still have $5 to $10 million that you could spend on maybe a trade acquisition or a slugger, some sort of slugger for the bench for DH or something. You know what I mean? I know that Christian is kind of headed towards DH, but you could still have a short-term Rhys Hoskins-esque deal and fit that in there still for somebody else. Maybe a different handedness. Maybe somebody's a little bit better than Bauer. You know what I mean? Like you could fit one more bat on there.
Yeah, for defensive considerations, Yelich only played 19 games in left field this year. So actually, for a lot of fantasy leagues, he is a UT only now, where you need to get 20 from the previous season.
Well, then maybe you pay somebody with some actual defensive ability, right? Instead of DH. So a corner outfielder that can play where Yelich used to play. That's a little bit old. Let's see if we've got a player like this. We're going with
I got Garrett Mitchell already coming back from injury.
Yeah.
Churio, Sal. I mean, you already got an outfield.
Kepler.
See, I think it's kind of redundant.
Mullins. Winker. They did not. No.
That's
Winker's
not
coming
Winker.
back.
Nope, not him.
Ryan O'Hearn.
Yeah, maybe Ryan O'Hearn is sort of like an upgrade
Lefty.
over Bauer. If you think he's a more impactful hitter than Bowers, then that gives you a nudge. Like that's
Yeah,
could
and
be
he's a
one
lefty
way.
with if Vaughn regresses and he's a righty, like maybe O'Hearn
Then
takes that.
Then he plays a little more. Yep.
Yeah, and O'Hearn is not awful yet defensively everywhere. So yeah, so that's our offseason for the Brewers. O'Hearn, Woodruff, and a bounce back starting pitcher like Tyler Malley.
Oh, Tyler Malley. You always say such nice things about Tyler Malley. No, but it's an area
Do you
of the
think
roster.
Dustin May needs a 1-year deal?
Oh, that'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah. There you go. That would be a really fun offseason, I think. Don't trade Freddie Peralta. Keep him. Dustin May, Brandon Woodruff. And then you're like, hey, if these guys are healthy in October, maybe we have different outcomes.
And maybe we're looking at Jesus Mate in August as a rookie that jumps on the roster at the end of the year. Only 5 games at AA, so still some time left to go
19?
in the minors. He'll turn 19 in May.
He's not even 19 yet. But Churio came up before he could drink, right?
Yeah, they had the baby stroller full of I don't know, root beer or something for him, or milk. I forget what they put in it, but they had that for one of the celebrations last year. So. Yeah, I think the way the system's one of the best, if not the best system in baseball right now. So that on top of the core coming back, they still can make things work. And you can spend a little more money within the range of money they've spent in the last 5 years. The CB tax 40 man, according to COTS, was 162 in 2024. It was only 143 this year. Come on, man. Open up those pockets, Mark Attanasio.
Plus playoffs money. This is actual money.
Yeah,
you just
spend
got
it
in the playoffs. Yeah,
spend it on the team.
Yeah, and then there's the chance of maybe even trading away because you have a guy named Cooper Pratt coming up, and people are excited about him, but it doesn't look like he hits the ball super hard. So he's kind of a defense first shortstop. You kind of have that.
Sounds familiar.
You kind of have that in Joey Ortiz. So maybe you just say, I know Joey Ortiz has his flaws, but he's here right now. And do we think Cooper Pratt is that much better offensively? Could we throw him in a deal here?
Do you have some exit velo numbers from Pratt? I mean, he played a lot at AA this year.
No, I have not seen exit, but I'm looking at the ISOs and they're below 100. So
he's so young for the level, though. I mean, he turned 21 in August. Like the Fangraphs grade has 45 present raw, 50 future. 30,
that's
45
better
on
than
game.
I would have expected, actually.
Yeah, so he's pretty interesting too. So they've got talent. They got guys coming. Another busy offseason in store for Brewers fans, though, and I'm not at all surprised to have already seen that Freddie Peralta story drop. Andy McCullough had that thing just ready to go. Like they finally found the Ohtani second homer ball, and Andy was like, "Submit." Good story. It's like, buddy, give us some time. Give us 24 hours at least. Just
picking over the corpse.
Someday, man. Someday it will happen. I will be just running through the neighborhood, beers in both hands, just well, if it happens on the road, if it happens at the stadium, I'll be running through the stadium, beers in both hands. Like, don't you want to be in the press box? No, not that day.
No, not that
not
day.
that day. As much as I can act like Jason Kelsey, I know I can't get on that level. That'll be the closest I ever get is the day the Brewers win the World Series. All right, we're going to go. Enjoy Game 7. We're looking forward to previewing the World Series matchup once we know who comes out of that Game 7. You can check us out on Discord. Find the link in the show description. We'll have a chat going tonight. I should actually be more active there because I will be at a wedding and driving to and from a wedding. So Looking forward
And I'll
to
be
enjoying
nursing
some
some
ball.
tea, so I'll be in the Discord as well.
Eno will be on his 9th zinc tea of the day, and 4th Zycam, so he'll be in top form as well. But that's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Tuesday.
Thanks for listening.